We're live.
That's great.
Yeah.
I miss being live. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining us for another live edition of the Bleed Lows podcast off-season shows. The winter meetings are in full effect. Dave Roberts talked about Teo's role for next season. And did Fernando Valenzuela get done dirty by the Hall of Fame voting committee? Tonight, we've got Cody, aka Ganello. We've got Anthony in the house, producer Roger behind the scenes, and I am Drea. Before we get into it all, we want to make sure to tell you about DodgersBeat.com. Stay up to date and in the know with all of the latest and most comprehensive coverage of the LA Dodgers. It is your one stop for articles, interviews, contests, merch, and more. Never miss a beat and check out DodgersBeat.com. Okay, fellas, it's been a few days since we last spoke. News is trickling in, and we're still waiting for some chess pieces to be moved around. But first off, how are you? And Anthony, when is Andrew Friedman going to hit checkmate?
I think he did when he signed Ohtani 2 years ago. It was kind of just like that was the ultimate checkmate. We're coming up on the anniversary of that happening. I think it's tomorrow, the 9th, if I remember correctly. But honestly, I'm kind of with them. Like, we really don't need to do much. I know it's going to sound so boring if we don't do anything, but our team is really, really good to compete with right now. We're the defending world champions. We have a really deep farm system, so I'm kind of okay with like standing pat. I know it's not the most popular answer, but like if I don't want to force a move if the move is not there to be made, unless it's Tarek Skubal. Then I want to force that move.
We're going to talk about Tarek Skubal, but that's fair. So, Cody, give us your general impression today. So much news came out.
Yeah, definitely. The rumor mill is churning. Obviously, got a lot of conversations with Dave Roberts, Brandon Gomes. We had an article come out with Andrew Freeman, I believe, from Bill Plunkett on the OC Register. So, getting kind of more clarity on what the Dodgers are going to be looking to do this offseason, which is great for us, kind of to finally get an idea of what their plans are going into 2026, what they want to do with the outfield, bullpen, starting pitching, all that. So definitely gives us stuff to talk about. I think the big one, obviously, is Teoscar Hernandez. That's kind of been a debate amongst Dodger fans on Twitter. Some people want to trade him. Some people want to keep him. That is an honest debate that the Dodgers are probably having behind the scenes as well. But, winter meetings, day 2, they conclude on Wednesday. So we got about 2 more days for things to happen. Hopefully today was the rumor day, and tomorrow or maybe late tonight, we start to get some action, whether it's the Dodgers involved or not. I kind of want to see some things starting to happen here.
I kind of want to see it too. I've been kind of like every few hours, I'm like, there's got to be something coming down the pipeline. We'll have to see. But Cody, you speak fluent Dave Roberts. Today, he was talking about Teo being our right fielder, almost kind of sounding kind of certain, not 100%, but it sounded like, oh no, that he's our man. Is that what he means?
Yeah, I think Dave Roberts, as we know, is a player's manager. He's never really going to come after his players when he needs to, challenge them or kind of get them to play to themselves or elevate their game. He most certainly will do that in a very savvy Dave Roberts way, whether it's one-on-one conferences with that player in the clubhouse or, just saying a sentence or two to the media and for the public to hear, and hopefully to, raise a little bit of fire under them. Like he did the same thing with Teoscar Hernandez last September, where, he had a couple misplays at Coors Field against the Rockies. And then from there on out, he sat a game and then he said, Teoscar has to play better, defense and right. And for the better part of the rest of the season, I know he had a couple miscues in October. He did play, average defense out there. And I think right now that's kind of what the Dodgers are trying to do. As of right now, the way the roster is constructed, you probably are putting Teoscar in right field just because there is no, everyday left field option. I mean, if opening day was tomorrow, you're probably looking at, Ryan Ward as probably being the guy that's out there. Tommy Edman is dealing with the ankle surgery. He's probably going to be delayed to start the year. Andy Pages, while he came up as a right fielder, looked really good in center field last year for all of his, the down hitting that he had in October. But I think, the Dodgers they're going to say Teoscar is the guy for right field until he's not. And that's up to the Dodgers front office to acquire somebody. If they get a center fielder and can move Andy Pages back to right, then I think the logical move would be to move Teoscar back to left field. And I really don't think it matters where you put him, because at the end of the day, he was a -9 outs above average outfielder, one of the worst in the sport. We all saw it day in and day out. He's just not the best defensive outfielder in baseball. And and the Dodgers knew that when they signed him to an extension. They knew that when they signed him to that 1-year deal back in 2024. They wanted the bat to be there. And last season, it was very inconsistent. It wasn't really there. You're hoping that if he is on the team next year, that he does bounce back and we see a little bit more of that 2024 Teo than we do of the 2025 version, which even the 2025 version wasn't that bad. You're talking about a guy that had 25 home runs and was an instrumental part of the Dodgers, lineup in October, came up with some great hits in the division series and that wild card series. And, if they didn't have him, they wouldn't be back-to-back champions. So I think there's a lot to kind of dive in here on this debate, whether the Dodgers would benefit from trading him or not. I'm under, the argument that I would rather keep him than create another hole in the outfield unless you have a solution pretty much like right away. But as far as Dave Roberts' comments, I think he's just going to ride with his guy and we'll see what happens the rest of the winter, because I think the Dodgers, as much as it's being reported that they're going to stay silent and not go, get somebody or be aggressive, I do think you have to also understand they're the Dodgers. They like to keep things tight to the chest. And when a move happens, they'll be sure to strike if they can definitely improve the team.
I hope so. I also think it's unfair to put Teo and compare the 2024 version of him to the 2025 version, because 2024 was extraordinary. And, we see these, like, I think, Anthony, we talked about it last episode that, we have one mistake and we all just kind of want to ship someone to the moon, but Teo is not in any way a bad player. I really think that he'll have an incredible season if we do keep him. But there is one player, Anthony, I want to get your opinion on that we've been talking about that is a potential or was a potential for our outfield, but it looks like we have to take him off our Santa list. Byron Buxton, your thoughts?
Yeah, ideally, when he first came out during the All-Star break last year, where he said he's not going to waive his no trade clause, I kind of like mentally said, okay, it's going to take a while to kind of like either convince him or the Twins are going to either blow it up, and they ended up blowing it up. So I don't know. I think it was in a dream world. I would have loved to have Byron Buxton. I think it would have been a fit. He would have smoothly fit into our outfield. But now I've kind of come to the conclusion, at least from the comments they're saying, I don't think these guys are going to trade for an outfield piece unless it's the right price. I do think I will ideally now. I kind of want them to go for Duran if that guy is available. I think he slots in very perfectly for us. But based on the comments they've been saying, I don't think they're going to trade Tail just because now you trade away another outfielder and you just make the hole that you already have even bigger. And what you're going to do there? Are you really going to just trust the only outfielder you have right now that I can trust is Andy Pages? We'll see what Ryan Ward is. I know Kim was taking reps out in the outfield, but I kind of feel more comfortable with him in the infield. But we'll see where we're at from there. But it kind of sucks that Byron Buxton is no longer an option for us. But I do like the younger option in Duran in Boston for us.
Let me just stick with you for a second, because there was some chatter about Harrison Bader today. Do you see him and Dodger Blue potential for that?
See, the thing is, I see all of these guys I can see potentially be candidates for us. It's the matter of like what avenue do they want to go down to? Do they want to go in the younger player in Duran or the seasoned, more veteran guy in Bader who can slot in as kind of a stopgap for the guys that you got in the minor leagues, whether it's a Hope, a DePaula, etc. So I wouldn't be upset if we go either route. If we go Bader, it's like, okay, we have a guy who's played in the playoffs. He plays really good defense. He's not going to shy away from the moment. He's been in big situations before, whether it's with the Phillies or any other team he's been with. And the Duran is kind of the wild card because he's the young guy. He's still trying to prove himself. He wants to be an all-star and stuff like that. Is he really going to gel well with the veteran team that is kind of like, all right, we're going to like play hard, but like we do it a certain way. We play for October. Like we don't worry about like a game here in August or in May against the Rockies or something like that. Like we kind of save ourselves so we can go full force in October. So I wouldn't be upset if we pull off any of the two. Bader would be a solid option as well too, just from the veteran spot. But I get scared when we start adding more veteran pieces. I do ideally want to get younger, but if they go Bader, it kind of signifies to me like, okay, they might trust the young guys that we got down in the system. They might think they'll take a leap in spring training. I don't think they'll be in the major team, but like in a year from now, maybe they might make that leap. Like, oh, this guy's he has a chance to make the roster in like 2 years from now.
Yeah, and I think that just kind of speaks to what Brandon Gomes said today, that he was looking at how they could make their roster younger, right, Cody?
Yeah, I think that's been the topic of a lot of, people that are covering the team right now. And that is something that could be an issue for the team moving forward, where if you looked at last season, the average age, I think, of the lineup, the, 1 through 9 was like 33 years old, which was the second oldest in baseball. Clearly that's not something that can sustain success. Those guys are going to be all a year older this year. And that's probably why they're looking to potentially shop Teoscar Hernandez. He is 33 years old, got 2 years potential for a third year left on that contract. So, if you can get off of that and get somebody back that's a little bit younger, or let one of your younger prospects, kind of take the wings after that, I mean, might as well, go ahead and do that. But I think the Dodgers will get younger because when they add some, Hae-Sung Kim's going to get more playing time. And then you got, some of these other younger guys that are going to be implemented in the roster throughout the season at some point, whether it's Alex Freeland or Ryan Ward getting an opportunity. And then say if they even do go in the free agency route, Harrison Bader, he's not young, but he is only just 31 years old, gives you above average defense. But other than that, he's marginally better than Teoscar Hernandez with the bats in certain areas. But at the end of the day, power wins in this game, and Teoscar Hernandez beats him at 10 times out of 10 times in terms of the power department, which at the end of the day, when October's here, that's really all that matters. And then we saw it, Teoscar didn't have the best season, but he swung it when it counted. And even for every mistake or miscue he made in the outfield, he kind of made up for it with his bat. So that's some value right there. And then kind of what Anthony was even saying, it seems like the Dodgers probably do have a lot of faith in, their minor league system with DePaula or Hope or Sirota, who I'm extremely high on. We're looking at these guys are kind of like 2027 ETA. We possibly could see some of them maybe in the second half of this upcoming season, which could be exciting. But I think the Dodgers, they're going to have to do what the Dodgers have done the past, 5 or 6 years. How can we continue to have sustained success? And I don't think that means signing a lot of these free agents to long-term deals in their 30s, which is why I'm a little bit hesitant to give Cody Bellinger a reunion deal. Well, I'm hesitant to say, let's give 10 years to Kyle Tucker. I kind of do like the plan of saying go to the short-term route, and the short-term route could also just include, riding out Teoscar Hernandez and then declining his club option, and then, handing the reins off to whatever minor league outfielder is that is ready. So that seems to be the plan. It may rub fans the wrong way a little bit, but you also have to imagine they just won back-to-back World Series. They have the best shot of anybody to win the World Series this upcoming year. So when it comes to Dave Roberts, Andrew Freeman, Brandon Gomes' mindset of maybe not needing to make a splash this year, I could say that you could sell me that. It just would be frustrating to see them not do nothing, which I don't think they're going to do.
There has to be something. I don't expect it to be a Shohei Ohtani or, one of the big years that we had where we were all on pins and needles wondering if we're going to get someone big. It just really doesn't feel like that kind of a year. But I feel like there's a chance that there could be something up Andrew Friedman's sleeve. But kind of going off of like what you were just saying about, making a splash and some of the comments that Roberts made today. I don't know if you heard the presser, Anthony, but he kind of talked a little bit about Tanner Scott. I wasn't expecting comments on Tanner Scott today, but he called last year's Tanner Scott situation kind of an outlier, and that he did expect that there was going to be things this season that we would see that would kind of be more in line with what they originally expected from Tanner Scott, and kind of implied that he was keeping things from them in terms of his health status. That indicates that this year is going to be a better year. But then he said it wouldn't hurt them to have like a high leverage reliever that they could possibly add. So he left the door open for that too. Since you're our resident a bullpen dog expert, what did you make of that?
I found it kind of interesting. Look, I'm willing to turn the page on the Tanner Scott thing. Like whatever happened this past year, it's in the past. Let's start fresh, new day here, spring training, first day of pitchers and catchers. But that's my opinion. I don't know how the rest of the fan base will feel if they see him in a close situation. Say game one of 162, it's a 4-4 game in the bottom of the eighth, and Tanner Scott's music hits. How do you think that stadium's going to feel? So I think there's going to be a lot of trust that he has to build back and kind of earn back. But I put it in this way: the pressure of winning a world championship should be off his shoulders because you just repeat, or well, he didn't repeat, but you just won one. So I would kind of feel like, okay, let's just kind of like turn the page and see where he's at. Ideally, if they do go for another top high-end reliever. I think Tanner Scott's your seventh and eighth inning guy. I wouldn't deploy him in high leverage after what happened last year. Kind of just like build your confidence up. Let's kind of throw you in that seventh inning role, and like we'll see where you're at from there. You still have Blake Trinan on this team. I don't know what he's going to look like another year older. He kind of looked awful towards the end of that playoffs. He essentially was unplayable. I don't think any of us felt comfortable whenever he picked up a ball, which says a lot compared to his 2024 season, how it ended. We all felt like Blake Trinan, if we want anyone on that mound, it's going to be Blake Trinan. So we'll see. We have a lot of question marks kind of here in the bullpen. So I'm kind of interested to see what they do. A lot of guys, the fear I have with bullpens is like a lot of those guys probably had a good year, but that doesn't mean that next year it's guaranteed that they'll have a similar year. So we'll see what young guys like Ben Kasparius look like. I like Jack Dreyer a lot, so I'll see what Jack Dreyer looks like, and he's coming off a solid rookie year. But bullpens will always keep me awake, regardless if we have the best bullpen in baseball. It's just always something with it. You can have a streak where they're like ice hot or they're red hot for like 20 innings, and then out of a blink of an eye, you look up and like, damn, the bullpen's been bad for like 4 consecutive games. So we'll see what they do. I think it's going to be a bullpen by committee. I don't think there's going to be a designated closer guy, like quote unquote, like this is my ninth inning guy, unless they go out there and sign a ninth inning guy. But I'm kind of like doubtful they'll do that. So I think it's going to be a bullpen by committee deal.
Yeah, even if they got someone like Diaz and they shelled out that money, that doesn't mean Diaz is going to have an on year. So you really just don't know with relievers, like you're saying. But kind of staying with that, Cody, do you think that Suarez is probably more along the lines if they do get a reliever, that's the direction they go with?
Yeah, it's kind of what we were talking about the last time we were all together. Bobby Suarez, from the Padres, he seems like the ideal fit for this team from what they're looking for in terms of free agency. Short term, decent, salary for 2 to 3 years. I know Jim Bowden on The Athletic said, maybe the Dodgers would give him a 5-year deal. That's not going to happen. Suarez is like 34 years old, I believe. So he's kind of on that trajectory as being a free agent of getting just a 3-year maximum. And I think the Dodgers would be comfortable with that, but I don't even necessarily think they're going to do that. The way I'm looking at the bullpen right now, it seems as, they said Roki Sasaki is going to be in the starting rotation. They want Shohei Ohtani to get around 25 to 27 starts as long as he's healthy. And, they can ride out a 6 or 7 man rotation. Well, you got Kyle Hurt coming back, you got Gavin Stone coming back, and you got River Ryan coming back. And, all three of those guys, they have pretty much completed their rehab in the second half of last season. And this offseason, they'll probably get ramped up a little bit slower in spring training and maybe start the season in AAA to continue a rehab assignment and then possibly rejoin the team. But, I just don't think there's innings in the starting rotation for any three of those guys, which is unfortunate for, Gavin Stone, who was arguably the team's most consistent starter 2 years ago. But I mean, talk about a weapon in the bullpen with those three guys. And then I haven't even mentioned Emmett Sheehan yet, where what's his role? Is he going to be a high leverage guy in the bullpen or a bulk innings guy? Is he going to be traded this offseason, or is he going to be, the 5th or 6th starter in the rotation? The Dodgers thankfully have the luxury of having a surplus of arms where they can kind of do whatever they want there in that regard. And I think that's kind of why you're not seeing them shell out the money for an Edwin Diaz or go after a Devin Williams or Pete Fairbanks, where those guys are going to cost high dollar, where those three guys that I just mentioned and even Emmett Sheehan, they're all in their pre-arbitration numbers. So they're only making a couple $1 million. And if you're a team like the Dodgers, yes, you like to spend money. You have, the means to outbid whatever team you want. But if you can save a couple dollars here and there, I mean, I'm pretty sure Andrew Freeman and company are definitely going to take advantage of that. So that's what I think they're going to be doing. I would probably be shocked if they did sign like a strict 9th inning guy like Suarez or Diaz, especially. Tanner Scott, you expect not to have an ERA north of 4 next year. You expect him to rebound and be somewhat, what he was when he was with San Diego and the Marlins 2 years before that. So that's what you hope from the Dodgers. And then for Blake Trinan, like Anthony said, he's going to be a year older and he didn't look sharp at all this year. So that's another wild card. Is he one of those guys that could possibly just be infinitely placed on the IL just to avoid giving him innings next year? I mean, that's definitely a route the Dodgers could take. And we've also seen them cut throat. They got rid of Austin Barnes. They got rid of Chris Taylor in the final year of their contract. As much as those guys contributed, if Trinan's not getting the job done in his late 30s, and they don't anticipate him being on the team in October next year. I mean, you might as well cut bait and let him loose. So that's kind of what the Dodgers are doing right now. They want to win and they want to put the best guys out there. Was a little bit off base where they kept Tanner Scott on the roster for the first 2 rounds of the postseason, but Dave Roberts was smart and they didn't use him at all. And then he ended up getting removed for injury altogether. But if you're the Dodgers, you hope he rebounds and then possibly could be that ninth inning guy for you, day in and day out for every win that you need. And especially in October, definitely be a weapon to have. You got Alex Vesia coming back. You got a couple other arms that are returning as well. Dodgers bullpen, it was an issue last year, but for the first half of the season, it was kind of pretty good. They just got overused and overworked, and that was due to the starting rotation having their fair share of injuries. You hope that doesn't happen this season with Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, and others. You hope that they can get at least 20 or more starts and eat some innings throughout the year, because if that happens, we're talking about this Dodgers starting rotation with the depth they have being one of the best in baseball.
Mm. Well, that kind of goes into what Dave Roberts was saying today about kind of how they're going to use this incredible rotation. You've got the idea that they're going to still probably go through like a 6-man rotation, being that they do have a surplus of people that can come out there and pitch. But that also kind of lends to some comments he made about Shohei Ohtani and pitching this season. Now, we already know that he's in the WBC. Knowing Shohei, I just feel like he's not going to want to not pitch in the WBC. He's going to want to get out there and do that, which kind of, brings up some comments that Roberts made today regarding kind of what the parameters would be around that. He said, I hope there's some discussion on kind of what that looks like, because he ultimately, what the Dodgers want the most is to win another World Series, and they want to put themselves in line for that. And he said that he would think that Ohtani could do 25 to 27 starts, which is a lot, considering that he's going to be also designated hitting. Does that sound realistic, Anthony, for Shohei to put himself through all that and possibly pitch in the WBC?
See, 25 to 27 starts is a lot. But the one person that I don't want to doubt is Shohei Ohtani, because I feel like he can go out there and do it pretty easily. But I've always just want to be more cautious with it. Kind of like, I know this is our meal ticket. He's the reason why we'll be playing deep into October, and I kind of want him using all his bullets in October. So, kind of going through there, we'll see what ends up happening. I do like the idea of kind of stretching these guys out, kind of like, okay, Shohei goes every 6 days. Yoshi kind of the same way as well too. But I kind of want to play the long game with them. I don't want to rush into any like harsh things right away. That's kind of where I'm at with the whole like kind of slow play. Plus, we have these younger arms that I kind of want to see get some play time as well too. Whether it's the Robleskis, the Sheehan's, the Gavin Stones, River Ryans, we'll see what ends up happening. I know we do have a surplus, but at the same time, I feel like our top guys, I kind of want to like slow play them. I know they're competitors; they're not going to want to be slow played. They want to pick up the ball every 5 days and kind of just go at it, but I feel like this past season is kind of going to be a good example for them. Like, hey, like we played deep into October. We played till November 1st. So we'll see where we're at going forward. But I feel like it's going to be just a way to kind of slow play things. They don't want to go too aggressive. Like I'll use Blake Snell, for example. If Blake Snell is kind of laboring through 6 innings, I don't think they'll push him through a 7th inning early on, at least to start. They'll be like, all right, big dog, like, we'll take you out here and like we'll let the bullpen go from here. So I don't think they're gonna force guys to go further. But like, let's say a Yamamoto is kind of cruising through 6 innings and he only has like, I don't know, 80 pitches. I think they'll push him that one more inning. Like, okay, let's see how far you can go. But I don't think they'll kind of overexert guys and make them go further than that.
Yeah, and they know the formula. I mean, they played through it last year and figured out how to best handle the situation with the pitching. I mean, one year you have a bullpen that's dominant. The next year you have a starting rotation that's dominant. And they figure out how to piece it together. We still came out on top, but obviously if they can get ahead of it this year and not have to put us through that stress again, that would be amazing. But that kind of lends to another thing that has to do with pitching today, but it's a little wilder. I think it's a rumor. It sounds a little crazy, but I wouldn't mind it. Cody, did you hear about the potential talk behind Skubal and the Dodgers? I mean, I know it's not totally off the table. There's always a chance. You never know with Andrew Friedman. But there was a reporter from KTLA, and I think in Jacksonville, saying that there's there's talks to have him join the Dodgers. There's momentum Nothing done yet, but the momentum is real, I believe was the quote by a David Pingalore. Possibly take that with a grain of salt, but what are your thoughts on that?
My Scooble prop to the Dodgers keeps getting shot down by Roger every time I bring it up. And one of these times it's going to hit and it's going to work out. I mean, if anyone's watched this program, for the past 2.5 years, Scooble's been a guy that I said that the Dodgers should have been hell-bent in trying to acquire. I remember at the 24 deadline before they got Flaherty, I said, hey, look, if Scooble's available, you got to throw the kitchen sink at him. He would have multiple years of control. He's a Cy Young Award winner, left-handed impact starter. And we saw what he did in the playoffs in back-to-back years. He looked borderline elite, -1 pitch to, I forget who it was on the Cleveland Guardians in a 24 division series. But, this year he looked really good against the Mariners. Arguments to say, why did they remove him from that game? They probably would have won the division series if he had stayed in, but that's neither here or there. But yeah, I still think if you're the Dodgers or any other team around baseball, if Scooble's available, you have to just throw all your assets to get him. And only a few teams have the capabilities in terms of prospect capital and major league talent to get a deal done. And then even fewer teams have the money to make the deal make sense, because I feel like if you give up that amount, you better sign him to an extension. And Scooble's probably going to net worth over $400 million. And the Dodgers, the Mets, the Red Sox, Yankees are like the only teams that I can realistically see saying, hey, let's put our chips in. We have the farm system. Let's acquire him and then sign him to an extension immediately. Does it happen? I would say it's slim, but it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility for Andrew Freeman. You could instantly slot him into the rotation. He would be starting pitching number 1. You're talking about a rotation where it's looking like Glasnow's the 6th starter and Ohtani could be the 4th or 5th starter in that type of rotation. You got Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Paul, you put Scooble in there at the top, and then you saw what they did last October. I mean, that's probably the trade that breaks baseball. If there was going to be a lockout, everyone would probably point to that one right there. The rich just keep getting on richer. But at the end of the day, if he's traded, that's entirely on the Tigers for not even giving him an extension or trying to give him a figure that he can negotiate with. I miss when teams used to lock down their franchise icons, and it just seems like only 1 or 2 teams decide to do that. The Yankees did it with Aaron Judge. They made sure that he didn't get away. The Dodgers have kind of done that with their core as well. Clayton Kershaw played his entire 18-year career in Dodger blue. And then even the other guys that they've brought in, like Mookie Betts, signs a long-term deal, and he'll go into the Hall of Fame one day as a Dodger. Freddie Freeman got the 6-year deal. Keep your stars. Don't let them go to other teams. And then you would have better parity, I guess, in baseball right now. Don't fault the Dodgers or whoever does eventually trade for Scooble. That is my kind of take. I do think he is traded this winter because I just feel like it doesn't make sense if they're going to trade him at the deadline, because I imagine the Tigers are still going to be in contention. So if that's the case, you probably would keep him. So are you really going to let him leave for a qualifying offer? I mean, I feel like that would be dumb if you were the Detroit Tigers. But at the end of the day, if you're the Tigers, you should just sign him.
I don't see Anthony. Okay, so I will just continue on. The kind of was going to ask him regarding the Pittsburgh, because he had brought it up last episode. And Anthony, we know he is a Pittsburgh fan, but he was talking about kind of building around a franchise. And I don't know if you heard that Kyle Schwarber, who is one of the people that's on the market this offseason, designated hitter for the Phillies, the Pirates were looking at possibly kind of throwing something at him. So does that kind of show that they're, maybe making moves around, Paul Skeens?
Well, it shows that they're definitely trying. I mean, as much as I would put merit into it, I would say they probably did offer him a deal. In terms of Schwarber likely accepting it, especially at this stage in his career, why would you accept that type of deal? I mean, it's something, if I had to choose between the Phillies, the Reds, or the Pittsburgh Pirates, I'm probably going to go back to take even less money to just rejoin the Phillies. I mean, they were just in the postseason. They had just as good as shots to make it to the World Series as the Dodgers did, but just couldn't execute. And Schwarber was a big reason why they didn't move on. He did not have a good division series this past postseason. But yeah, I feel like you need even these bottom dweller teams in terms of payroll. They have the luxury of being able to afford some multi-year contracts. The Pirates haven't given out a multi-year contract since I think 2017. So that's kind of embarrassing for them. It's embarrassing for the sport. But kudos to them for offering a deal. Does it mean that they'll get it done? Probably not. But does it mean that they should stop? No. But I don't imagine them making much traffic here in the next 2 or 3 years, and then by that point, Paul Skeen's window in Pittsburgh is probably going to be over, and they would have no intention to build around anybody else. I mean, for the most part. So I imagine you're going to see some of these teams still rot away. I would like to see Pittsburgh, kind of compete in that division again. They were one of the more fun teams to watch. I remember in 13, 14, and 15 when they were in the postseason. I have a few friends that are Pirates fans as well, and they're about the most passionate bunch that you can have. If you're watching Pirates baseball in the year 2026 and you're still a fan watching games, I mean, you got to be a hardcore baseball fan. So kudos to them. Hopefully they get something done.
I don't think it'll actually happen, but it made me think that, hey, maybe they heard Anthony's plea to kind of like start making some moves around their stars. But yeah, I mean, I know, Anthony, that you kind of want to see some of those teams kind of say, hey, let's make some moves. And Paul Skeens is incredible. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Kyle Schwarber. I think he stays with the Phillies. But yeah, let's kind of like switch gears a little bit because some big news came out. I think it was yesterday. We're all kind of chatting about the Hall of Fame announcement. Some ties to the Dodgers, but it's turns out that Jeff Kent, so former Dodger, but really just he's really a San Francisco second base star. He is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame next July. And a lot of Dodger fans, a lot of fans across MLB, they had thoughts. I mean, he's an incredible player, but I kind of wanted you guys' take on that, and then kind of how, at the same token, Fernando Valenzuela, our beloved Dodger star, kind of got a little bit gypped. So let me start with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna give some love to Jeff Kent first. He played for us from 2005 to 2008, so this is kind of like 7 to 10-year-old me. I had to go back and look at the numbers because I don't remember anything from that time period apart from just straight up just watching ball. So he actually had a really really good age 37 year with us. He was an all-star, 3.8 WAR. So I'm gonna give him his flowers. Congratulations to him. I think more baseball fans will remember him as a Giant. I kind of remember him as a Giant. Most of his highlights and his great years came as a San Francisco Giant. He did end his career with us, but I feel his primary years were with the Giants. And with the rest of the other guys, again, Fernando, enough has been said about him. I think he's one of those players that the Dodgers fan base will kind of admire more than other fan bases just because he only played. Well, he played for the Padres as well too, but most of his great years were with the Dodgers blue. I think he's a Hall of Famer in my books, but I feel like his longevity wasn't there. He had all those really good years with us, but if you look at the years he had with the Padres, he was still pretty solid, but he wasn't the Fernando when he first broke out onto the scene. So I hope he does have his moment. It's kind of a shame that it took forever for the Dodgers to kind of retire his jersey. It took forever. It was something that probably should have been done years and years ago. I know a lot of fans were kind of pleading for it, so I'm kind of happy we do have that moment, and he was there to kind of witness that moment. So, but for the rest of these guys, I kind of would just induct them just to induct them because I'm tired of the whole narrative of the whole steroid thing, this, that, like Barry Bonds, or it's Roger Clemens. I know he's not in part of this ballot, but A-Rod, stuff like that. At this point, we know what they did. We're not done. We can read all the reports. We can see all the video, all the trials. We know they took this stuff. Just put them in. They were way. Barry Bonds was a really, really good player before he started doing the stuff. And then I know a lot of baseball writers kind of hold it against him because he's not really a good person. But at this point, what are we doing? We're just having the same argument over and over and over and over. We're gonna keep having this argument for another 6 years because he's not gonna be on the ballot for 6 years or 7 years, whatever that number is. But at this point, just do it. What are we just gonna wait until unfortunately this guy's not with us no more and then we're gonna do it? What's the whole point of doing it? You're supposed to celebrate players' accomplishments. Yes, he has the numbers. He should Hall. There's a reason why, or he's making the Hall of Fame because they used to walk Barry Bonds just to get Jeff Kent at bats and stuff like that. So I don't know. At this point, like, I feel like this is just going to be a debate that we have of our lives, basically. Like, because I just don't see it. Like, baseball writers tend to be like very picky. They're very like, oh well, this guy didn't give me an interview back when I was like, I don't know, covering the Giants, so I'm not gonna vote for him. Like please, like just let the numbers do the talking at this point.
I agree. I mean, I kind of didn't think that in the end that it was going to come out in like where I would have wanted to, but I don't think anything is bad with having Jeff Kent go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, when I was looking through his numbers and kind of reminded myself his player status, he's fantastic. Cody, what were your thoughts yesterday when that announcement came through?
Yeah, I kind of expected it to go the way it did. I feel like Kent has been someone that we've debated on this channel for the past couple of years, whether he should or should not be in the Hall of Fame, especially, me and Juan, back in the 23, I think, season, I always made the argument Chase Utley should be in the Hall of Fame. And he told me, well, Utley can't make it if Kent's not in it. Well, now that I think Kent's in it, I definitely think Utley definitely will get his flowers eventually one day in the future. But I mean, the guys, the steroid users, I imagine the voters will never vote them in, unfortunately. The only one that I do think probably has a kind of good chance is A-Rod. And the reason I say that is because I feel like since he is a media member, he's probably on good graces with a lot of those guys now. And he's taken a lot of time to apologize and do all that stuff where, these guys like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, they have not done that. They've not been remorseful or anything like that. They pretty much either outright still say they never did do it, or, if they did do it and they admitted to it, they've never apologized or done anything like that for it. So, and I think what Anthony was saying, the media, they were never on good graces with those players. So I think the bridges are completely burned and are never coming back. And then in terms of, Fernando not getting in, Steve Webb wrote a really good article on DodgersBeat.com today and kind of broke down, the case for him not to get into the Hall of Fame and why it was the right decision. And I do kind of lean that way. If you look at the counting stats and you look at all these other metrics and numbers, they aren't ever going to live up to some of the other guys that are already currently in the Hall of Fame. It is supposed to be an exclusive group of the elite of the elite. And sometimes there are certain circumstances where a player should get in based on, other unforeseen circumstances that have happened, whether their playing career was cut short, like Sandy Koufax. He didn't play very long, but he was just so dominant in the time that he was there that he was just a no-brainer to be added to the Hall of Fame. But, there's more to it than making just the Hall of Fame. Fernando's an icon in, the Latino community in Los Angeles, for example. His numbers retired by the Dodgers. Finally, that happened a couple years ago. So he's gotten his flowers for what he's meant to the franchise and the city and, the country of Mexico, and a lot of, younger fans that have finally grown up now and brought the game of baseball to the next generation. So his, I guess, legacy is more than just the Hall of Fame. And there are some guys that can transcend that. And I think Fernando definitely was one of those guys. He's not going to be up for debate until possibly 2031. So we'll see what happens with that. But it's not looking too good for Fernando. But be thankful that he got his number retired and he got his flowers to celebrate his life before he ultimately passed away.
I agree. I feel like my own family and so many people that I know that I grew up with around this area, he was such a pivotal part of like why we're fans of and go to Dodger Stadium. And I just think that bringing a whole demographic into into the sport has just been so pivotal. It may not express itself in the numbers in terms of the counting stats, as you say, Cody, but I really feel like he was just iconic for the sport in general. So it's unfortunate. It's not like I didn't think that was going to happen, but I feel like at some point I would like to see it if it was ever possible. But someone who will be going in without a doubt one day, we talked about him all season, was Clayton Kershaw. And producer Roger and I kind of had a chance to talk to Tommy Edman this past Saturday at an event where, if you remember, like the last play of Clayton Kershaw this season, the last time we saw him out on the mound was that game 3, 18-inning game where Kershaw came out and had that awesome last play. That's how we're going to remember him. And Tommy Edman was a part of that play to make sure that he got the ball to first base. He just kind of just talked about the brotherhood, talked about different things that he expects to see this season. But yeah, he is going to be coming back, I believe, like, at least he said he plans to be 100%. Even though he might not be there right at the beginning of the season, how excited are we to see Tommy Edman possibly play center field and, be a part of this core team again, Anthony?
I'm excited. He had a really good start to the season last year before the ankle kind of started bothering him. So I'm excited for a healthy season. I know it sucks that his offseason is going to be spent rehabbing, but I felt like last year his versatility was what we were missing all along. It just felt like whenever you threw him in the outfield, I know we threw him out there towards the last couple games of the season, but that's kind of the season was on the line and he had to sacrifice for the team. So, but I felt his versatility out in the outfield would have solved a lot of our problems last year. It just felt like every time we threw him out there, something would happen in his ankle, like it would bite back or it just wouldn't respond to him, especially playing on turf. But I don't know, Tommy Edman. I feel like I hope he's finally past his ankle like problems because when we first traded for him, he had an ankle problem. This year he had another ankle problem. So hopefully this was finally like just like okay, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna clean it up. Whatever you need fixed, we're gonna fix it, and you'll be 100% healthy because he actually is a very big piece to us. He helps us kind of fill the gap as well in our lineup. I felt like last year, whenever Tommy Tanks was on, you couldn't pitch around him because he was going to find a way to get back on base and kind of pass the baton to the next guy. So hopefully for him, it's an off season to kind of just recover, take his time, knowing that now he's a 2-time champ and that he doesn't have to rush the process, especially if he's not. I hope he's ready for the start of spring training, but if he has to take like a week or two to kind of just practice off to the side, kind of take things slowly, that's kind of another thing that I would hope so for him. But hopefully he's back to being his normal self next year.
I hope so. He's definitely one of my favorite players ever since he joined. I feel like there's just been kind of good vibes all around the clubhouse. I feel like there's been just what he was talking about as just a core group of guys that really just have good chemistry together. And I really think that there's a lot of winning that's going to be done with them in the coming years. So don't know if we're going to see that mega splash this season. And I know our fan base, is just so used to seeing such incredible moves in the last few years by Andrew Friedman and company. But whatever they do, I'm sure it'll still be an amazing season one way or another. They'll put together the right team. But yeah, definitely going to switch gears just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about some Shohei, really cool behind the scenes news. I don't know if you guys heard Dave Roberts, not today. He did, I think, a Japanese interview where he talked about Shohei giving, I think, a sizable contribution to a team member from a couple years ago, Gus Farland, whose mom had cancer. And Shohei quietly made, I guess, a donation for her treatment to make sure that she got, whatever she needed to get. Obviously, we never heard about it in the news. Dave Roberts just, brought it up and really just shows like what Shohei's character is. And it just made me think, he's been through a lot the last couple of years. Obviously, all the good stuff has happened, but he went through a lot with his, translator stealing money from him. And normally people will put up walls when they go through something so just that sense of betrayal. And Shohei, rather than, let it corrupt him or let him, kind of don't trust anyone or kind of, with his generosity was taken advantage of, he goes and he does something so wonderful. He still has the kindest heart. And I just think that could there be a better representative for MLB baseball than Shohei Ohtani, both on and off the field, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just goes to show more than just a baseball player. It is hard to kind of get a grasp of who Ohtani is unless you've kind of seen him in the clubhouse or if you've seen him on the field and taken away from, watching him live in the game because he has a different attitude. He's more serious, kind of, he knows the job, and especially as hard as it is to do two things at once in this hard of a sport. So to him to kind of take the time out, it was a nice story giving it to, the Varland family, helping the mom, recover from cancer, which it does sound like she fully recovered from. And, a guy like Gus Farland was like barely on the team. He was here for like a couple months. I believe he came up and down through the minor leagues. And then he ultimately, I don't think he's with the organization anymore. I believe he got DFA'd or released or even possibly traded. And then to kind of have that, impact the team a little bit later, Louis Varland on the Blue Jays, you see the family supporting, his brother, and then the family's there and the mom ended up being there as well. Kind of full circle moment, kind of shows how even though these two sides and these teams are competing with each other at the highest level, you can still find times to be human. And Ohtani has not only just one of the best baseball players ever, he's also one of the, most compassionate people in the sport. So, and he gets a lot of hate on social media. He gets a lot of hate from opposing fan bases for good reason from the sport in terms of how good he is and how lucky we are to have him for the next, 8 years now. So, we're going to continue hearing stories like this, especially, I believe he launched his own charity event, his own foundation, giving back to the community in LA, Japan. He's an international icon, and we should definitely appreciate him more than what we already do.
I do. And I was kind of just thinking back today after you sent out the text to our chain regarding, I think it's like the 2-year anniversary of the flight to Toronto, or that he's headed there to sign, and all of that craziness that was surrounding what turned out not to be true. Remind me of what I was doing that day. And I'm just curious, Anthony, do you remember the day that Ohtani was supposed to sign with the Blue Jays and he was on a flight to Toronto?
Yeah, I remember it, but for whatever reason, I really wasn't fully sold on him being in Toronto. I don't know. I kind of had that feeling that we were always going to be the number one destination. So when I first saw that tweet, I was like, maybe it's just the delusion in me. I'm like, nah, I had to see, like, if the next tweet after that would have been like a picture of him holding up a Blue Jay, not an AI picture or like Grok or whatever, like an actual photo of him holding up a Blue Jay hat or like a jersey, then I would have been like, damn, we missed that on Ohtani. But until like it was official, the paperwork was like signed, sealed, and delivered, or like Ohtani came out himself, kind of similar to like what I talked about. Like he posted something saying like, hey, like I decided on joining the Toronto Blue Jays. Like this is where I'm going to see out the rest of my career, stuff like that. I was going to hold out hope until the very, very last possible like second. So I really wasn't buying it. Yeah, I got a little nervous. I was like, oh, like this isn't good, but I wasn't fully like, oh man, we missed out on Ohtani. I kind of wanted to wait a little bit more. I was just gonna be delusional, just wait until Ohtani says something, because that kind of was the dead giveaway. Like Shohei hasn't said anything, so I'm like, I'm not gonna trust it. And like I'm pretty sure I had notifications for his Instagram on anyway as well too. So I'm like, I'm just gonna wait. So that's where I was that day.
I actually believed it. My stomach was turning. I could barely work. I was tracking the plane. Cody, did you buy it, or were you like, no, I'm going to hold out hope till the end, like Anthony?
No, I remember me and Roger were texting. I was at work and I said, did you see the tweet from Dodger Nation and all of them? And I said, is it real? And I was tracking the plane once I got the Reddit links to kind of go through everything. So there was a little bit of me that said, what, maybe this is real. Maybe this is what's happening. But then there was also that side of me where I was like, no, we just fresh off the Diamondback sweep. I said, man, this team's got to make some moves. Like they have to, right the ship and like kind of get back on track, because, we're the Dodgers. We haven't won the World Series since 2020. And even we're still getting made fun of for that. Like we need to make some moves here. Can't go out in the first round again. Got to get Ohtani, who I remember leading up to that 2023 offseason, everyone said, yes, we're holding out for Ohtani. They did the small marginal moves, brought in JD Martinez, DFA'd Cody Bellinger, brought James Outman up. They ended up getting under the luxury tax, I believe, that season as well. So everything reset for them in order to go after Ohtani, Yamamoto, and all these other guys that they eventually did sign. So I remember my heart was racing, but then I think it was the very next day is when he announced that he was signing with the Dodgers. And I remember opening up Instagram, calling one of my close friends. I said, bro, you got to see this. I was like, I think Ohtani just signed with the Dodgers. So definitely a whirlwind. Definitely was locked in on my phone more often than I would like to admit. But I always knew he was going to be the Dodgers.
December 9th. I remember where I was seated. I remember what I was doing. Anthony, what were you doing when you saw that pixelated LA Shohei Ohtani announcing he's going to the Dodgers?
It's funny because like the two most major like free agent signings in LA sports, LeBron James and Shohei Ohtani, I was doing the same exact thing. It was a laundry day. I was doing my laundry. I had completely forgotten about it. I put my phone down for a bit and just kind of got in the zone doing laundry and errands around the house. And then all of a sudden, because I'm playing music, I just get a lot of buzz. I'm like, first of all, the immediate thought is like, okay, what's going on? Like what happened? And then like I turn my phone and like I see the notification and I'm like, no, there's no way. And then I go onto Ohtani's Instagram and I see the LA, the funny part is the pixelated LA post. And it was kind of one of those like where you kind of just let out a yell. I'm not gonna yell on the podcast, but I remember I yelled. My brother came into the room. He barged in like, "Did you see the post? You see the post?" And it was kind of like it felt like we had finally got our top guy. And so it was one of those cool like moments I'll always remember. I was doing laundry and stuff like that. It's not such an exciting story, but it just sticks in my mind. The last two major free agent signings. I know I'm not a Rams fan, but at least with the Lakers and the Dodgers, I was doing the same exact thing. It was a laundry day, and I was kind of just like, okay, let me just focus on myself. But yeah, it's cool. The other one that's interesting, last year when Blake Snell signed, I got a DM from my buddy Luis, and I was like, why is he sending me a Blake Snell post? Like, what the hell is he like even sending me this Instagram post for? Like, I don't follow Blake Snell. And then I opened it up, and I'm like, is this real? Like, because it was just a picture of him saying like, "LA, I'm here for you," and like something in him in the Dodger jersey. And then I went to go check Twitter, and sure enough, like he signed with us. I'm like, that's completely just out the blue. I wasn't expecting Blake Snell to sign when it's that fast last year. So it was kind of like that's where I also remember where I was doing with the Blake Snell thing. I was like, why is my buddy sending me a random Blake Snell post? Like, what does it even have to do with anything? And then I opened it up, and sure enough, he had signed to be a Dodger.
I think he's really excited to be a Dodger. He's kind of had in the back of his mind that this could be an ultimate landing zone for him. And I was real excited when I saw Snell. But yeah, Ohtani coming to the Dodgers, I had visions of like World Series just running through my head, picturing so many things that would happen over the course of the 10 years. And I think even I'm blown away by the fact that his first 2 years, we've already won back-to-back championships. I mean, we couldn't have asked for anything more. But yeah, that brings us to our prediction part of the segment. And I kind of want to just go fast, hard, and mean. The next several days, the next several weeks, what do you guys think will be, or what's your bold prediction for where the Dodgers are going to go? See who gets closest to hitting the nail on the head. Cody, what's your bold prediction for offseason?
I mean, like, so I kind of have an idea what the Dodgers are probably going to do. I don't imagine much is going to happen this week. Unfortunately, it just seems like everything's going to trend to move slow. It seems like the only guys that are going to fall off the board possibly over the next 2 days is going to be, I believe, Kyle Schwarber, maybe Pete Alonso. None of those guys are connected to the Dodgers, but maybe some of the else in the market goes. But I think I really want to see, if Skubal is available, if the Dodgers do make an offer, if they make a push. That would be my bold prediction. I think they do have the assets to get it done. I think they have the pitchers that the young, controllable, major league ready pitchers that the Tigers would definitely take on board. Say get 4 years of Emmett Sheehan, 5 years of River Ryan or Gavin Stone, and say, hey, look, we got these two arms to replace, Skubal, as good as he is, and then maybe get a hitter prospect or a major league ready hitter. And then your team's pretty much still in contention for that American League Central. And the Dodgers in turn would be getting one of the best arms in baseball to fortify their already elite starting rotation and kind of just going scorched earth at that point. I think if you're the Dodgers this next year, you should try to take advantage of the current system you're in. And that means, sign and trade for players and give them these long-term, massive deals for the right players. And I think Skubal would be that one guy that I would say, you know what, if you want to give him a $400+ million contract for 10 years, go ahead and do it. You may not be able to do it once the next CBA hits and there's a salary cap possibly. So all those guys would be grandfathered in. No penalties or anything for the Dodgers after that. And then you would reset with the new, salary cap and all that stuff and the penalties that come with that. But I think the most realistic thing is that they just get an outfielder. I'm leaning that it's probably either going to be a trade for Donovan from the Cardinals or probably signing Harrison Bader. It seems like that's the more realistic scenario here. But I want to go big or go home. Just go get Skubal.
Okay, Anthony, go. Do you think something crazy good will happen? What's your bold prediction?
I'm kind of with Cody. I don't think anything big is going to happen. But if I'm going to put on my Stephen A. Smith's face right now, I say they sign. This is me being outlandish. I don't think it's actually going to happen. I think they go and get Robert Suarez. I think they'll sign him. And I think they'll trade for Duran. I just feel like there's a lot of smoke there. But in all honesty, I think they're going to just stand pat. It's a very, very boring answer. But at the same time, I just don't see them doing something out of the ordinary unless it's kind of just to fill in like the gaps they have here. I don't think they're going to go far exceed themselves unless it's for Skubal. I'm kind of with Cody. Like if it's Skubal, go all in for him immediately. But other than that, I think they're going to stand pat. But yeah, I think it's going to be a slow off season for us, but it should be a slow off season. You're defending back-to-back world champions, so teams should be chasing you. You shouldn't be chasing teams.
That's true. I think they're gonna go for Suarez, but I hope for a Tarek Skubal and maybe even a Diaz because I just have a soft spot for him, but I really don't think that's actually gonna happen, but I kind of hope it does. But yeah, Cody, the winter meetings wrap up very soon. What's next on tap for it is the Rule 5 draft, right?
Yeah, I think the last day of the winter meetings on Wednesday, Rule 5 draft. I put an article out on my Substack and Dodgers Beat, kind of going over all the key dates for the winter meetings, and the Rule 5 draft was one of those, and did put some of the Rule 5 eligible players on there. Don't imagine many of them get selected, if any at all, just because of the way the Rule 5 works. If you're selected in the first few rounds, you have to remain on that team's active roster, not the 40-man, the 26-man. So not many teams are willing to do that, even with the Dodgers' riches of minor league talent. Could see a guy like maybe, Jared Karros is an interesting name that could be taken. But I imagine all those guys are safe. The Dodgers did protect a couple of them, got protected by being added onto the 40-man, and then Ryan Ward as well. It was also Rule 5 eligible, but now he's on the 40-man roster. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's kind of an interesting period. It's a weird draft that not other sports have. So it's an interesting one, but we'll see what happens over the next couple of days with the winter meetings. We'll definitely have all the updates on my social, DodgersBeat.com, and then obviously my Substack as well.
Absolutely. And don't forget to check out something we mentioned on one of the previous episodes. This coming Thursday on the MLB Network, you can check out a special episode with Bob Costas and Verducci talking about Game 7. So if you want to relive all of those incredible moments, check that out at 4 p.m. Pacific time, Game 7 special on MLB Network. But yeah, if you want to check out any of Cody or Seawood's articles, definitely go to DodgersBeat.com. Definitely check out Cody's Substack. And producer Roger's going to keep on making sure that we have all of video content and anything that you need to know as it happens for winter meetings and beyond on the Bleed Lows Podcast Network. If you want to check out our handles, go ahead and check out Anthony on X and Instagram at Anthony Acosta _. Check out Cody on X at Snavely Cody 6. And if you want to check out my X or Instagram, it is at Ravine Queen 1958. And until next time where something big happens, let's go Dodgers.